Hello, and welcome to episode 13 of Roadkill Entertainment's Video Village podcast. I'm sitting here with my buddy Mike again. He's joining me again this evening. Hello, Mike.
Hello.
Tonight, this is going to be kind of like actually, I had to point out the fact that this is episode 13 and we're recording on the 14th, which is interesting. I don't know. Somebody. Whatever. Bad joke. Didn't work. It's not really gonna...
Saturday the 14th was an awesome film.
You know, I still have not watched that movie in its entirety.
Oh man, it's so good.
I gotta watch that movie because you gave me a copy of it, and I still haven't. You lent me your DVD of it, and I still haven't watched it. Let's see, but yeah, tonight we're just doing this episode today. Whenever you listen to it, would be whatever time it is. We're just kind of a regular episode this time. We're gonna do the Planet of the Apes films. We're gonna talk about in as much detail as we can remember and figure out. I just literally sat through all of them except for Rise, which I remember pretty well, but that's the only one that I haven't re-seen over in recent times. I literally sat through all the old ones just because I was in like a Planet of the Apes thing. And you've seen the show before and stuff too, right? I never really watched all the episodes of the TV show.
No, I never saw the TV show or the cartoon.
I never seen the cartoon either.
Yeah.
Okay, so we won't be commenting on the TV show or the cartoon for much there. But anyway, have you? We'll start this off with. Have you seen anything interesting lately, Mike, that you want to talk about, recommend?
That's a good question. Let's see. Well, I watched all the Apes films.
Okay, there you go.
I got the Muppets Most Wanted on Blu-ray the other day, which is a phenomenal film.
Now, there's an extended version of it on there, right? Is the extended version actually better than the theatrical version, or is it just kind of like longer?
It's longer, but I thought some of the stuff that they left out was really funny.
Really?
Yeah, some of the gags.
I enjoyed the movie in the movie theater. I didn't like it as much as the Muppets. Like the first one, I thought that one was better than the second one, but I did still enjoy it. So I was very curious to see like what this extended version is. I kind of forgot it was even coming out, and it just kind of came out because I've been picking up all these like cult releases, like these horror releases, and I'm forgetting about like the big ones that are coming out. I'm like, oh, Muppets came out. Shit, cool. So yeah, so how was that Blu-ray disc anyway? Because I don't have that one.
It's great. Yeah, it's totally worth it. I mean, the the extras are a little low. There's a blooper reel, which is great. There's a thing with Rizzo. I won't spoil it or whatever, but there's a little extra with Rizzo, and
they had those in the other ones too. They're like little shorts, right?
Yeah.
With the rat and like the Rizzo the rat, and they had one with the Pepe guy too,
right?
Like the prawn.
yeah. This one's just Rizzo doing a skit about his biggest fan. But that's kind of it for they always throw the trailer on and whatever. Whatever. But that's kind of it for extras that you really care about. But it's still worth it.
They never really do. They don't. I mean, there's a few little things on some of the other discs about behind the scenes stuff, but there isn't really any extensive behind the scenes material about the Muppets. I almost think that maybe that's on purpose
to keep the magic.
To keep the magic of it, like because if they give away too much of how it's all done, I don't know. Maybe it's one of those Jim Henson things, like because I know but David Lynch, for example, David Lynch doesn't like audio commentaries because he doesn't like the idea of people talking over the movie.
Right.
So his releases come out. There are no even the new Twin Peaks box set, which I actually got just like a week or two ago. They don't have the audio commentaries that were on the first set that came out. He kind of pulled them, but that's okay because half the time I don't listen to them anyway for like a TV show. You know what I mean? Sometimes I do.
What was what we should talk about? What was that movie we watched a couple weeks ago with Jeffrey Combs?
We watched a movie with Jeffrey Combs.
Yeah, the dinner.
Would You Rather?
Would You Rather?
That was great. Yeah, we can talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that movie.
That was really good. I was actually really surprised because I'd seen that one floating around for a while, and I kept looking at it going, I wonder if it's any good. If it's any good. And then I just kind of and then you said, I have it. I'll bring it over. So I don't know. I really liked it.
Yeah, it's a very extreme version of the game Would You Rather at a dinner party thrown by Jeffrey Combs, and he gets a bunch of people who meet his criteria of people who need need to win in life, and need a helping hand, and whoever wins the game gets the helping hand, and a lot of things happen.
Yeah, no, I really liked it. Because when I originally read the description for it, it had a very. It seemed almost like a Saw knockoff. Like the description was almost very similar to Saw, but it feels very different than that when you're watching it. It doesn't feel like a Saw movie. So if there's anybody out there that may have seen the movie floating around but haven't really kind of watched it because they're like, well, this sounds kind of like a Saw movie. It's not. It's not. I wouldn't put it in the quote unquote torture porn category. No. It's got more character to it than that. It's not just about the kills. It's about the idea behind the whole thing.
It's very smart. I mean, Jeffrey Combs is a great actor. The whole cast was really good.
Yeah. Cool. Are you now? Did you ever watch Twin Peaks, Mike?
I've never watched it.
I just picked up the new Blu-ray set that came out for Twin Peaks. It has all the episodes and the David Lynch movie Fire Walk with Me, and it has 90 minutes of deleted scenes from Fire Walk with Me, because Fire Walk with Me was originally like a 4-hour movie because they had all the characters from the show into the movie. But I have to say, in my opinion, might be a little bit unpopular amongst the Twin Peaks like nuts, like the people who are, and I love Twin Peaks. I'm a big fan of the show. After watching the deleted scenes, they felt like deleted scenes to me. Like all these years later, they made a special featurette which is like 90 minutes long. It's called The Missing Pieces, and it's put together almost like you can't call it a movie because it's just deleted scenes, but like there's more care put together with the way it's put together. It feels like deleted pieces. You know what I mean? Like chunks, and they're interesting to see from a character point of view, like for fans of the show, but they don't add anything to the movie. And they really feel like when you're watching them that, okay, they just wanted to put the characters from the show in the movie, so they found ways. And you're not familiar with it because you haven't watched it, but if you had watched Twin Peaks, there's so many little subplots going on. It's very soap opera-y with all the characters. So the movie itself is... I think technically it's supposedly the last 7 days, because the first half of the series focuses on Laura Palmer, the homecoming queen, is found dead, wrapped in plastic, floating in the water. And it's about the town and the people, and they're trying to figure out who her killer was and this and that. The movie itself, which came out after the series was finished, is the last 7 days of Laura Palmer's life. So it's like watching like a true crime reenactment of everything that happened to her. It's friggin' dark. It's a dark friggin' movie because it's really just about this girl going crazy, being possessed, and getting molested and killed. And like, I guess, spoiler alert, right? But I mean, I guess if you had watched Twin Peaks, you would know that. I didn't give away the killer, so. Yeah, that's basically what it is. And I just wanted to bring this up, though, just because for anybody curious out there right now, there's a lot, if you go on like the Blu-ray.com forums and stuff like that, there's issues, which sucks, because when you go out and buy $100 fucking box set, you get pissed off when like there's always something wrong with the things that you want the most, you know what I mean? Like the stuff that I could give two shits about that I spend money on is perfect, nothing wrong with it, not a sync problem, not anything. There is specifically, I'll just technical, but episode 9 goes out of sync at the beginning of the episode, and it stays out of sync for like the first half of the episode. And there is a technical way I discovered. This is very technical, but like if you have a Blu-ray player and there's a 24 frame mode, you know how that they have 24p, you can run in 24p. Yeah. Well, if you shut the 24p mode off on the disc, it plays in sync. If you turn the 24p mode on, it screws up. It goes out of sync. So I don't know what that means. All I know is there is kind of a workaround. You can go into the settings and shut it off and play with it. And the Fire Walk With Me disc, the one that has the missing pieces of Fire Walk With Me seems like it's slightly out of sync. It's one of those things where like I'm watching the movie going, is it out of sync or isn't it? And you know how it is with that. Once you notice it, it drives your brain crazy, and you're trying to not focus on that when you're watching the movie. I'm watching lips the whole friggin' time, like looking for sync issues. And the deleted scenes, there's a few sections in the deleted scenes that are out of sync. Now, so I don't know if they're eventually going to do like a recall or something like that and like replace those discs for people or not. But right now it's really weird because when you read the forum, some people are like, well, mine doesn't do it, mine does, mine doesn't do it, mine does. So there's really no solid answer. Like I was thinking to exchange it and see if I got a set that didn't do it, but there's so many people posting the problem that I'm like, it's probably a widespread issue with the whole pressing. Right. Just some people experience it, and some people just don't pay attention enough to care. But so I guess purchase with caution. I guess, but I mean, if you're a huge Twin Peaks fan, you're gonna want it anyway, and you can kind of get around it. It's not the whole show, it's not everything, but it is a little annoying. But and let me see what else. I wasn't sure if I was going to actually do like reviews of discs, but I've been picking up a bunch of Scream Factory discs lately, as if always. It's all I purchase is Scream Factory. They release so much shit that like I don't have time to purchase anything else. Every 2 weeks there's something new out by Scream Factory that I want.
God bless them for doing it.
It's awesome. I was just telling my wife Katie, they're going on about 3 years now that they've been around as a company. Going into the third year, I think. Like after this, by the end of this year, it'll be going into the third year. And wow, man, have they had a slate for 3 friggin' years. It's probably, as a collector, as a horror film fan, as a cult movie fan. I mean, I went through Laserdisc, I went through VHS, all that stuff. There was Elite Entertainment. Anchor Bay was really big in the early DVD days, when DVD first came out, and Anchor Bay was releasing all those Italian horror movies and all that stuff, like the Dario Argento, Lucio Fulci. But I think right now is the best time. If you have a Blu-ray player and you are a horror fan, right now is like the best time to be a horror fan. Okay. Because between Synapse, Scorpion, Severin, and Scream Factory, of course. I'd say Code Red, but Code Red is really weird. And I like Code Red's stuff, but it's so scattershot the way that they release titles, and you can only get them through them, so it's kind of tricky to even get that stuff.
Right.
But between all those companies, man, like every catalog title you can possibly think about is coming out. They announced Scorpion's putting out. I don't know if you're familiar with a movie called To All a Good Night, David Hess's directorial film. Right. They're putting that out on Blu-ray. It's actually finally coming out, which I feel kind of sad because, I mean, I've talked about this before. I had friends that knew David Hess very well, and I met him and knew him a bit. And actually, Mike knew him, worked with him at the conventions and stuff. Yeah. So he's met him and dealt with him. It's kind of sad that, like, it's finally getting a little bit of attention. It's coming out in, like, a good version. Like, and David Hess isn't around to appreciate it because of all people, he'd be pretty psyched to see his movie actually getting a decent transfer. Because all these years, the only thing that's ever been available is a shitty VHS master. So I'd be curious to see that movie again, like watch it, and be able to see it. It's the same thing with Curtains, which I just picked up, Synopsis Curtains, which looks amazing. The transfer of it. It was neat just to see the movie because all I'd ever seen was like shitty VHS masters of it. So it was like watching the movie all over again for the first time. Like I almost felt like I never saw the movie. You know what I mean? Because there's a lot of stuff that takes place at night and you couldn't see what was going on and everything. And don't get me wrong, Curtains isn't an amazing movie. It's very flawed and it has a lot of like production crap that went on with the making of the movie. Like it was filmed. The guy who made it was a cinematographer. And he filmed like 45 minutes worth of a movie. They didn't have enough movie to shoot to put it together. So the producer, which was the producer of like Prom Night and stuff as well, that guy went in and he shot more footage, cut some of those cinematographers' footage out, and then tried to turn a suspense thriller into a slasher movie. So it's really weird. Not knowing this, you watch the movie, it doesn't feel that disjointed. It feels like one cohesive entity. But once you know the story behind the movie and you watch it, you feel like you're watching 2 different movies. It's really weird. You can really pick it out. Like I think they said 35 minutes of the movie was reshot by the producer. And like there's like 50 minutes of it is what was originally shot by the director, but there's 35 minutes of like slasher type stuff. You know what I mean? Girls being stalked and killed by the killer and stuff like that. Like that works out. The movie's pretty cool though. Actually, it's definitely worth picking up for curious fans of like the slasher genre, those who grew up in the 80s and just like those kind of movies in general, like Final Exam and that kind of stuff. I actually like Final Exam. I don't know. Do you know my Final Exam? Like,
yeah, no,
Final Exam's okay. Actually, what's weird about Final Exam is I think the movie has to be judged differently than the slasher films. I think Final Exam was meant to be like a teen movie where all the kids get killed at the end. And I always said, that would be a great idea to do. That was kind of my idea for a while, too. I had that idea to write, like, a total, like, John Hughes movie that turns into a slasher film at the end. And I'm like, that's Final Exam. It's a John Hughes movie because they developed the characters very well in that movie. And you actually like the characters in the movie. But there's not a lot of depth. Like, most of it's just a movie about a bunch of kids at a college campus and just doing what they do, joking around, whatever. Then all of a sudden it turns into a brutal slasher film in like the last 20 minutes of the movie. And I'm like, well, that's an interesting take if you really look at it like that, you know? But, so yeah, I'm blabbing away. Anything else interesting that you want to talk about, Mike? Or
Yeah, I mean, I want to get All Cheerleaders Die, but I haven't gotten that yet. I'm really going back to the Scream Factory, Shout Factory announcements. They're doing Escape from New York, which would be awesome.
That's pretty cool because it's finally going to have all the bonus features that were in that 2-disc special edition. Yeah. It's not the Blu-ray version that exists right now. I don't know if you have it.
Yeah, I don't. I have the DVD.
You have the DVD
the Blu-ray
version.
Is nothing.
The Blu-ray is just a movie. Yeah,
right.
It is. The transfer is pretty damn good. It most likely the way Scream Factory works. When they license this stuff from like MGM and Universal, they usually just take the same master that they transfer master they do and maybe spiffy it up a little bit, you know what I mean? So it's probably going to look pretty much exactly the same. Maybe they'll color correct it a little differently or something like that because there was some fans that were complaining about color correction on it or something like that. So maybe they'll try to fix what people had a problem with. But the 2-disc version that had tons of bonus features, came with a little comic and stuff like that. That's the one you had, right? I don't have that one anymore. It'll be great to finally have all that, and to have that, like I have on my wall. You can't see it, but I have posted on my wall. I have the Escape from New York poster, an original, and it'd be great to have that as the cover too.
That would be.
I think it has a lot to do with. I think what makes specifically Scream Factory right now, the cover artwork that they're doing, like their new commissioned artworks and their original poster art that they're putting on everything, they kind of started that. And now the other small companies are all coming in and they're saying, well, we'll use the original poster art. Because everyone was trying to change the covers for a while there. Right. I think Synopsis always kind of used original poster art. I'm not sure about that Scorpion company. I think they usually use poster art as well because it's the easiest, most accessible thing to them instead of designing a whole new cover. But now some of the mages are even like picking up on that because we're going to talk about Planet of the Apes in a few minutes. They reissued the same. As it turns out, they reissued a new version of the set. I don't know if you've seen it in the stores. It's the same ones that we have, just repackaged in a new case.
Right.
They basically the only set that's ever come out for that is there was that 40-year Evolution set that had a book and it like all that stuff. But then they reissued the second. I think you said the version you have is the one that came in the box, which is the single disc. Or do you have the big one with the book?
I actually have the for Blu-ray. I just have the box set with the individual
movies. They're the same ones as that. They just package differently. They just repackage the discs.
Yeah.
But what I found interesting is the cover that they used for it is a variation of the original poster art for the original Planet of the Apes, which companies like Fox and shit like that never do that. They always do some kind of cut and paste, like Photoshop faces. So it's almost like Scream Factory is kind of like their ideas are bleeding over. They're like, oh, this sells, so let's try it with the original poster art. But they'll probably go back because look, there's a whole slew of I just read online of horror movies coming out. Universal reissued their a whole slew like American Werewolf in London and stuff. They're doing them with all these like limited edition cover arts. Now it kind of seems too obvious, doesn't it? Like they're just taking the idea and like oh, they're making money off it, so let's try, But excuse me, sorry. But I lost my train of thought. I went kind of nutty there for a second.
It's Escape from. Yes. I mean, it's interesting looking at your poster that in that poster there's the decapitated Statue of Liberty, which ties into
our subject. Which, you know what? What are we at? We're at 20 minutes or so. All right, we'll get into our subject because we got a good handful of movies to go through here. So we'll start today. We are going to talk about. We're going to go through the whole Planet of the Apes series. We're going to go through the movies because neither one of us are too familiar with the TV show. I know a little bit about the TV show, but the cartoon I really don't know anything about. I think I might have saw an episode or two of it when I was a kid, but just that's not enough to remember anything. Yeah. But I've always been a big fan of the Planet of the Apes movies. For some reason, it's just one of those things that when, like, if you're in the same age bracket as us, I'd say like 35 to 40, you grew up remembering these movies being played on like Saturday, Sunday afternoon TV, there was always like a Planet of the Apes marathon going on, and they were playing all the classic Apes movies and stuff like that. Was the first time you ever saw Planet of the Apes? How you saw it?
Yeah, it was a weekend kind of thing, and because they were G-rated movies.
Yeah, generally speaking, right?
Yeah, which is amazing. Thinking about it now, especially as you got into like Battle for the Planet of the Apes. That's a violent movie.
Yes.
But yeah, that's how I came into it. Was you'd see it on channel 56 or whatever, a local channel around here. They'd show it in the afternoon, and you'd see it after school or something, and you go, oh man, this is how can you beat it being a little kid who's into like horror stuff and sci-fi stuff, and you say talking apes taking over humanity. That's great.
And there was just something about like I mean, we'll talk about like the new movies when we get to the end, but like there's something about the iconicness, the iconic look of that ape makeup, the masks, and the way they made them look. Like those friggin' apes, like when I think about being like 10 years old, like that's part of my memory of being 10 years old, is those friggin' apes. Like there's just something about the way they looked that was just kind of cool, just like weird and like strange, and yeah, they sort of look like apes, but they sort of look like people, and like, yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people now that are fans of the newer series that probably look back and go, oh, they look cheesy, but there's just something about it, cheesy or not, there's just something about the look of those apes. Like, okay, so we're going through we're talking about, so let's go, we'll start now. We'll start with the first one. We got Planet of the Apes, the original Planet of the Apes, which was 1968. The movie came out in 1968, and excuse me, hold on, I'm just making sure that I have not screwing up all my information on this here, but it came out in 1968. It was directed by a guy named Franklin J. Schaefer. Now, it's to most modern filmmakers and stuff, this is one of those Hollywood directors, because this is the guys that made, like, he directed Patton. He directed like a couple other movies here. I'm trying to say, this is not very easy to navigate this the stupid Kindle that I have in front of me, of course, so I can give some of this information here. But anyway, he directed the movie Patton as well. He did a handful of stuff. It says he was one of the most innovative creative minds in early days of American network television. So he did a lot of stuff on TV back in the day. Planet of the Apes. I think it lists Planet of the Apes and Patton as like the two big things that he did. So, but it's a different era. It was the studio era as well, where you had like studio directors and they worked specifically for that studio. So he was a Fox director. He worked for 20th Century Fox, this guy. And I love the original Planet of the Apes. The 1968 Planet of the Apes is one of those movies. Like my wife, sometimes I've tried to get her to watch it. She gets kind of bored with the first half of it with the astronauts. She never gets to the good stuff, because I'm like, once you get to like the ape civilization, I think even anybody who would be kind of like bored by the beginning with the astronauts, they land. There's gonna be spoilers in this talk. There's no way possible, so I'm gonna say that now. If you've never seen these movies and you don't want to get things spoiled, maybe you shouldn't listen to us, because it's impossible to talk about these movies without spoiling them. I mean, right. How are we gonna do that? So, but I mean, the movie starts off with you've got Charlton Heston playing Taylor, and you've got like a couple other astronauts. They crash on a planet, and they end up getting out of their spaceship. Their spaceship is gone. No, can't be used anymore. Well, at least at that point, we think it's gone. And they travel across this like desert land, not knowing where they are, until they end up finding other humans, basically. But the first part of the movie is very kind of like, and it's funny because Rod Serling apparently was an early writer. Right. He was involved in the original phases of the script.
That's where the end came from. That's totally
that's
Serling.
Twilight Zone-y.
Yeah.
To me, that movie feels Twilight Zone-y when I watch it, and that's kind of what I like about it, is it has that Twilight Zone-y feel. Even if the first half with them just traveling through like that desert land, it's very Twilight Zone-y and creepy. I don't know, but I mean, I've always been a big fan of the movie, and like But there's something so iconic, going back to the iconic thing, and this is why I kind of went back into the first movie. There's something so iconic about that first scene where you see like the humans just like, you know, picking fruit off the trees, and the astronauts find the humans. Then all of a sudden you just hear like the rumble, and you hear all that stuff, and you see those, it's a cornfield, and you see those friggin' horses come with the friggin' gorillas on top of it. That is such a classic, iconic image in like American cinema. Like, I don't know, what do you
it's still, you know, no matter how many times I watch the film, every time, the first time you see the gorillas come up, it gives me chills. It does. It like scares me a little bit.
It does. It's just the way it's handled, and it's that sequence was handled so well that, I don't know, it's just a great introduction for that world and those characters. And apparently, from what, because I was watching some of the bonus features, and they were saying that, I've never obviously read it, but the French novel that it's based on, Pierre Boulet.
Yeah.
Yes. Have you ever?
I've never read it.
Apparently, it was more like, they were more like real apes in the French in the novel. The novel's different, they said, than what it became. So that it was different enough where like the studio heads didn't even know, could you make this movie? Does it even make any sense that you could make this movie? But I like the direction that the filmmakers went with it. I think they improved upon it. Like, I think nowadays everyone always like, so go back to the novel and make the novel, and I think that's what they try to do nowadays all the time, because they're rebooting everything under the sun. But the direction that they took with it, with Rod Serling kind of adding his Twilight Zone flair to it and all that, I don't know, like, I mean, what do you like Charlton Heston? I love Charlton Heston. He's in those movies.
Yeah, I mean, he.
Okay.
Yeah. You know, I was never a fan of Charlton Heston's politics, but as an actor, he can definitely chew up some scenery in the right way.
Yes.
You know?
But see, Charlton Heston, though, what's interesting about Charlton Heston is, I don't know if you're too familiar with, I kind of got into this phase of his career. I've seen the Ten Commandments and that stuff too, but I mean, in the 70s, after Planet of the Apes, oddly enough, he went through this, like, Charlton Heston is doing science fiction movies phase. And I'd say if there's a Charlton Heston trilogy, all right, that if somebody likes Planet of the Apes, they should see these three movies: Planet of the Apes, The Omega Man, and Soylent Green. Those three movies, I don't know, have you seen, The Omega Man probably, right?
Yeah,
have you ever seen Soylent Green too?
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right, cool. Like, I like all three of those movies, and that's the Charlton Heston thing to me. When I think of Charlton Heston, to me, that's Charlton Heston. Like, in these, like, weird, that's his late in his career, I guess, for him, probably. But, I don't know, there's just something about the style and tone of those 60s and 70s sci-fi kind of idea type movies, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you know, you had him, it was kind of like a style in Hollywood. Like, you had him when Chuck Connors started acting. He's very much the same.
Yep.
You know.
Yeah, because he went off to do like kind of like the sci-fi horror stuff late in his career. They all kind of did. Chuck Connors, oddly enough, was also a gay male porn actor at one point in his career. I don't know if you actually knew that.
I didn't know that. Wow.
I don't know. People are like, well, how do you know that? No, I actually know because a friend of mine had told me this, and I was like, really? And like, I don't know what he was in, but he did gay porn at one point in his career, and it was around the time just before Tourist Trap, like around that era when he did it. He was, I don't know what he did, and maybe this is an urban legend, maybe I'm just maybe he really didn't do it. I don't know. There is some stuff out there that he did, probably during like the John Holmes era and stuff like that. 'Cause there are a lot of actors and actresses that crossed over into porn during that era. Like, look, Sylvester Stallone was in a movie called Party at Kitty's or something like that. I forget the name of it, but he's not really having sex in the movie. He's just naked in it for a little bit of a while. But it is a softcore porno movie, the whole movie.
Yeah, we saw it at work.
Did you?
Yeah, it's now called The Italian Stallion.
Oh, they have a different name for it? Oh,
yeah.
It's been retitled?
With a big picture of him on the cover.
Hilarious.
Yeah.
Does it have like a rating? Does it say rated X, or is it just R? Like
I think it's unrated.
Unrated,
yeah.
Okay. Weird. That's funny that you guys actually sell that.
Yeah.
But, okay, this is going to be like all night now. There's going to be some douchebag driving up and down my street with his motorcycle. He's just loud and obnoxious. But anyway, off that subject. So do you have anything else you want to say about Planet of the Apes, the original one, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's watching it as a kid and watching it as an adult with the whole series, it's you notice as an adult how politically amazing it is. How very topical even now.
Yeah. There's so much politics in those movies, and I think they did the thing where a lot of, and actually, to be honest with you, I think that's where a lot of modern sci-fi kind of falls apart sometimes, is that the classic 60s and 70s science fiction were they were using all the political problems of the time and they were masking them with these weird science fiction concepts. So you're watching, I mean, I bet you a lot of people don't think about it when you get to we'll talk about it, when you get to Conquest of the Planet of the Apes, you're watching race relations. You're watching a movie about the race riots in the 70s. That's what it is. But they used apes, so they figured, nobody's gonna, we can get away with it this way, you know what I mean?
I mean, every film in it was about race and about, equality and acceptance or lack thereof. But isn't it funny, too, that in the original film, you felt bad for the humans, and as the series went along, the tide turned, and you started to feel bad for the apes.
Yeah, you did. They flipped them when you get to the third movie.
It's kind of like a slasher franchise where you start liking Jason.
Yeah, right. And as the times go on. Yeah, because in the first movie, really, other than Cornelius and Zira, they're all. The apes are kind of a threat. They're a threat to Charlton Heston's character.
Right.
Who's just trying to get away from them and escape from them. And, it's a role reversal. They got him locked in a cage. They're treating him like we would treat apes, I guess. That's the whole concept. But, other than that, everybody else is against him. Mm-hmm. And I always liked how they had they separated the classes of apes in these political groups. You've got the gorillas of the war are the soldiers. You know what I mean? What do they say? The orangutans are the teachers. They're the teachers. The chimpanzees, which are Cornelius and Zira, they're the intellectuals. Right. They're the scientists and stuff like that. So it's interesting to me. I find it interesting how they did that. But all right, well, we'll move forward. I'll jump ahead because. When you start talking about these movies, there's one big lump sum, so you kind of just mentioning everything all at the same time. But we'll go to the next one. The next one is the original. First movie is Planet of the Apes, 1968. Second movie is Beneath the Planet of the Apes. That was from. This is gonna drive me nuts. I don't even know why I'm bothering to do this. Beneath the Planet of the Apes was 1970, and Beneath the Planet of the Apes is directed by a guy named Ted Post, I think is actually the director who did it. Now, Ted Post is another TV veteran from back in the day. I'm pretty sure Ted Post is the director. And he was most known for television and stuff. And Ted Post directed a movie I liked, actually. He directed Magnum Force, the second Dirty Harry movie as well. So, and he's another one of these, Hollywood directors from the time, because you're still dealing with the studio system, late in the studio system at that point, but it's still that era, you know what I mean? So he's another one of those directors. He directed Hang 'em High with Clint Eastwood, not my favorite Clint Eastwood Western, but he directed that one. And of course we're talking about Beneath the Planet of the Apes. Personally, I enjoy the movie, but it is my least favorite movie of the entire original Ape series.
I 100% agree, and I do enjoy it.
Yes.
But I feel like there's something missing, and I think part of it is the whole, culture and political aspect of it. It's there, but it's, I don't know, it gets off on a different bent where it almost seems like after that movie, the series kind of just should have ended. And I think that was the ending.
I think they intended it to be. Well, I know there's some interviews with Charlton Heston. Charlton Heston didn't want to do a sequel, so they talked him into coming in to do a few scenes in the movie. but he talked them into saying, well, why don't we end the movie with the world exploding? He was pushing that idea with them setting off the bomb and blowing everything up. So he's like, well, then they can't make any more movies.
Right.
A little too, they can always come up with an idea.
and it's it's kind of funny that the idea that they came from, because it just the movie's going along and then it just goes total shift in direction.
The thing about the movie that for me where I get every time I watch the series, and I watch Beneath the Planet of the Apes, I get to a certain point of Beneath the Planet of the Apes and my interest just starts to I get bored with the movie at a certain point. And I almost gotta force myself to watch the rest of the movie. It's when they get underground with all the the telepathic they're supposed to be humans that have been living underground with the nuclear bomb all these years, and they have telepathic powers and stuff. I always thought that was just a little bit. It's odd to say over the top in a movie where there's apes attacking, but it almost seems like it was a little too much for the story.
I mean, I liked the. It's an odd word to say the reality of the situation, looking at these films, but I like the reality of the first one where you had the Forbidden Zone, and that was a place they were just trying to hide from people to see because of what it was, old New York. But then in Beneath you go, oh, okay, now it's the Forbidden Zone is kind of being controlled by these telepathic guys underground, and they set up the firewalls. And you go, oh, well, it kind of takes that away where now the apes aren't hiding from something. It's the telepaths that are controlling it. And, it takes power away from the apes.
It does take power away from the apes in that way. And it feels hokey.
Right. And why didn't the telepaths just take over if they were telepaths? It's I think of it like that.
Yeah, and it's they didn't want to leave their underground lair. They didn't step out from there. But you're right. It's very strange. It's a unique subplot in the whole series. But for me, one where they could have, I don't know. It feels, and I know there's a lot of fans of these movies, because if you go read up on forums and whatever, a lot of fans, they love Beneath the Planet of the Apes. I think this is a great movie. Probably people that are bigger fans of the hokier 60s sci-fi type movies, because it has that. Whereas the original Planet of the Apes had the political bent to it. It was also like a Twilight Zone episode, but it had a political bent to it. This one almost falls into the Saturday afternoon, sci-fi, just monster movie. And I like the movie The Day the Earth Stood Still. I love that movie. But movies like The Day the Earth Stood Still, it starts to fall into that. And not quite as good as that, actually. It's just kind of not. And I felt the beginning of the movie, I always find it interesting with that movie where it feels like they're just trying to remake the original.
Right.
It's the early days of reboot, because the whole beginning, another astronaut lands and then he goes looking for Taylor, and it's the same story. And oddly enough, that's the one that Roddy McDowall wasn't in. He didn't play Cornelius in that one.
Right.
I guess he couldn't do it for whatever reason. I don't think it was any it wasn't because he didn't want to do it. He was busy.
He was directing something.
He was directing something, so he couldn't actually do it. But it's really weird because when you watch the series, Cornelius feels different in that movie.
Yeah,
it's close, but.
Yeah, but he kind of feels, he seems like a lesser character because he doesn't carry himself as well as McDowell.
No, McDowell carries that character so well. I mean, that is a classic character for him.
Oh yeah.
That's his legacy. Really, would be that character probably. He's made a ton of movies, but I honestly think that if you go through his entire career, he made that entire series of movies. That's a big chunk of his legacy.
Right. It's like what did he do better, Cornelius or Caesar?
Right.
Which was he better?
Yeah, right.
In,
okay, because when we get into that, okay. So really, I like Beneath the Planet of the Apes. I think it's an entertaining movie, and if you're watching the series of movies, I suggest to watch it because it's part of the series.
Yeah, it's a good movie.
It is a good movie, right? It's just, for me, it was the least interesting of the original series of movies. And then the next movie we get into. Actually, the next movie is my favorite.
My favorite
really?
too.
Okay,
yes.
Good. I'm glad we're totally on the same page here. The Escape from the Planet of the Apes is actually my favorite. It's 1971. Escape from the Planet of the Apes, let's just a little background here, is directed by a guy named Don Taylor. Okay, I don't know who Don Taylor is. Let's see what did Don Taylor do? Don Taylor is known for Oh, okay. He directed Damien Omen 2. I did not know that. Wow, cool. And that's actually one of my favorite ones of that series as well. A movie called The Final Countdown and The Island of Dr. Moreau, but this looks like it was like a 70s version of The Island of Dr. Moreau.
I know that one, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Does that picture look familiar to you? That poster right there?
Yeah.
That's Island of Dr. Moreau.
Yeah, I've seen. Yeah, that's a good version.
Oh, it is? Okay, cool.
Oh, yeah.
Cool. I always like 70s versions of stuff anyway, but yeah, so Escape from the Planet of the Apes. Now, it was almost like at this point they had to, because they blew up the nuclear bomb at the end of the other one, they had to come up with like, what are we going to do? But the idea they came up with, while campy in concept, works so well in the movie. Like, you've got Cornelius and Zira, the two main characters, and actually Dr. Milo, because he's the third guy. He's just a random character.
Right.
But, they apparently, I guess when the world blew up, they had found, we find this out at the beginning of Escape from the Planet of the Apes, but they had found Taylor's spaceship. Okay? And somehow they had gone back in time through the time travel in his, because he traveled through some kind of like time vortex or something in the original movie, and that's how he ended up wherever he ended up on Earth thousands of years later.
Right.
But so they actually went back in time. So they end up in 1972, I think. In the movie, it's 1972, I think. I can't remember if it is. The movie was 1971. This 70s. They end up in 70s New York, is what it is. And so you've got these two apes, and now it's the two apes that you like the most from the original series with the humans in New York. And you get this like kind of fish out of water story. It's almost like Splash, like, you know what I mean? It's like Daryl Hannah like trying to assimilate to New York again. But yeah, this is my favorite one of the series. But go ahead, Mike.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I just love that. Here's where it switches, and now the apes are the people who are kind of given the fisheye and all that, which I totally understand. But they win the humans over, and it's like it's a feel good movie.
It is a feel good movie
for the first half.
Yes,
and then it just punches you right in the face.
I know. It does that thing that I personally, because I'm a big fan of 70s cinema. It does that thing that 70s cinema did so well, where like they develop characters that you absolutely love and stay with through a whole movie, and then it turns into this like political message where like everything goes freaking haywire, and it's like it gets very dark. A lot of 70s movies get very dark, and this movie does that. It feels to me it gets kind of Dirty Harry-esque, where like the end of the movie gets very, very dark, and it's like, I mean, right to the point where like, I mean, obviously spoilers, but you know that already, but like to the point where like Cornelius and Zira like die at the end of the movie. They
are cold-bloodedly murdered,
gunned down,
and not for nothing, but the baby, the baby chimp.
Yeah, she just throws it into the water at the end, and the thing falls, right?
But before that, the villain that's hunting them down, who works for the government, he shoots the baby point blank 4 times.
He does. I mean, it's just it's so cold and
it is horrible.
Dark at the end, and it's like, man. But it's one of these, and that's what's so funny about what you said before. These are G-rated movies.
Yes,
they're G-rated movies in the 70s, and they're so cold-blooded at the end. It's like it's such a different era for like rating system. Like I mean, I'm pretty sure it was G. Most of them were G. I think, yeah, or PG at least. Like I think it's PG for Conquest. I think Conquest got a PG because it was a little darker.
Yeah.
But I mean, they were G for generally speaking. They were trying to aim these movies towards a younger audience, like a kid audience. But I mean, they were making these like heady sci-fi political like statements.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, we'll get to it, but they said that they lost a lot of the kids on Conquest, so when they did Battle, they had to try to recapture the kids.
Right.
Market.
Yeah, and because I just watched that documentary. Yeah, right. Yeah. Totally. But I mean, I love that one. That's one of my favorite ones. I love the characters, and that one introduces probably the most important character in the entire series, because that's what they're going off of even in the new movies. However, we'll get into this debate after. I'm very curious as if the new movies can really connect or if they can't connect or not. The filmmakers seem to think they can connect, but I'm not sure that they can after watching the old movies again. But yeah, so they introduce Actually, and in Escape from the Planet of the Apes, the character's name, the baby was called Milo after Dr. Milo.
Yes.
All right. It wasn't Caesar. It was Dr. They named it after Dr. Milo because he died.
He died really early on.
In the beginning of the movie, he was such a random character.
Yeah, and it was Sal Mineo. Like that's a quality actor.
Right. It was Sal Mineo. Yep. That's right. And he was just in like the first 20 minutes of the movie, really, like barely, maybe like the first 15. As soon as they get in the
yeah, it was like he was in there just so he could die early, so you could feel bad for them. But it was so unnecessary.
It was so unnecessary, and I mean, I think where that movie works really well for me. I like the whole movie anyway, but like I like the fish out of water aspect when they finally people accept them that these apes can talk, and they're in New York City and they're like media celebrities, and they they get dressed up in the latest fashions and stuff. And it's I like that idea. It was just fun.
I mean, Cornelius in a suit is awesome.
Classic.
I want an action figure of that.
Yes.
And we shouldn't go any farther without talking about how amazing Kim Hunter was.
She's great. Yeah, because we talk about Roddy McDowell, but she was amazing, and she was a mainstay. Like she stayed through. Oh, was she's in the first 3. I know that for a fact. Did she come back in any? No, she wasn't in the later.
Yeah, she didn't play.
But she did the first
character.
3, and
right.
then but she was. Zero, the classic character of Zero, was awesome. Oh, and we forget to even mention Paul. I know he comes later.
He comes later.
He's in battle. He's in battle.
No,
right?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah. There was another guy that played. What the fuck is his name? Cornelius Dr. Zaius in the original. That I forget. I can't think of that actor's name off the top of my head, but he was a popular actor from the time that he played that character as well. But yeah, no, I love Escape from the Planet of the Apes. Yeah. It's always been my kind of my favorite of the early series, and I think it's well loved by the fans of the movie. I'm not sure, but it seems to be even though some people find the idea a little corny and a little bit over the top, you can't help but deny the entertainment value.
Right. I mean, it needs to be corny to express how dark it gets.
Right.
Like it makes it has to set you up with the sugar,
right.
to just punch you.
Well, and then the big reveal at the end of that movie is when they get Cornelius gets gunned down and they all die. The little baby that they had gets shot.
But before you make the point, when he dies and they send the dummy over the thing, when he lands, that is the most gut-wrenching landing. It's a mannequin, but oh my god,
just the way it falls.
Yes, he broke everything in his body. I just love how they filmed it.
And it's such an ending. It's such a powerful ending for that type of movie. I mean, out with a little kid watching that, a kid would be horrified by the end of that movie. They massacre Cornelius and Zero.
Because that the kid is also gonna relate to the chimp baby, which for anybody who hasn't seen it. So Zero is pregnant.
Yes,
she has the baby. The baby actually gets switched out. Through Ricardo Montalban runs a circus.
Right.
They switch him out with a regular baby chimp to conceal him, hide him.
Because the big deal is the government feels that they need to stop the birth of that baby because they feel like that's going to change their history years later, and that's how it all starts.
Right, because they got Zero drunk, and then they recorded this conversation with her where she told the history. She was
drinking grape juice plus.
Yes,
she kept saying. Yes, they said, "Ooh, I like grape juice plus."
Very Clockwork Orange.
Yeah, totally.
But so she has the baby and whatever. So she's going around with a baby chimp that's not hers, and they just brutally murder it. So imagine being a little kid going, "That's a cute little chimpanzee. Oh my god, I just got shot 4 times."
I was thinking about this. I'm like, what can you equate this with? This is like watching E.T. and the government gunning down E.T. at the end of E.T. It's like imagine E.T. at the end when he gets sick. Instead, they just gunned him down, and that's how the movie ended. I mean, it seems so ludicrous when you really think about it like that, right? But it really is.
It is.
But I mean, such a different time of filmmaking. But you get to the ending, and you get that switch where they switch the baby, and that Armando Asante, that guy who was running the circus, who kept baby Milo, the talking baby, the talking chimp, the son of Cornelius and Zero. Now, that's how the movie ends. You find out that, he's still alive. Okay, and so they do that so that, they can make another movie now, and they can go forward. Then the next movie after that we going into is, we'll move forward now, I guess. We're into Conquest of the Planet of the Apes. which was 1972. And Conquest of the Planet of the Apes actually is directed by a guy named J. Lee Thompson, I think. Yes. J. Lee Thompson, actually, I'm familiar with J. Lee Thompson because he was responsible for a handful of Charles Bronson movies. He directed Death Wish 4. Actually, he's most known for Cape Fear, the original Cape Fear. He's the director of the original Cape Fear. He made a ton of movies. I said this to Katie, my wife, the other night. She's like, I was talking about the director. I'm like, oh yeah, he directed Death Wish 4. Probably the one movie he doesn't give a fuck about in his entire career. He's known for Cape Fear, and I'm like, oh, that's the guy who made Death Wish 4. Right? But Death Wish 4, Murphy's Law with Charles Bronson, if you've ever seen that, he made that. King Solomon's Mines, that was a popular movie from the 80s. The Evil That Men Do, he did a lot with Charles Bronson. 10 to Midnight. Oh, shit. A major one. Happy Birthday to Me. He's the director of Happy Birthday to Me. So, I mean, he's done a lot in the genre. Like, he's done a lot of genre. Ooh, a movie that I always wanted to see called The Reincarnation of Peter Proud. I just like the sound of that title. It's from the 70s, but I've never seen it. But yeah, so he directed Conquest of the Planet of the Apes. So now we're in 72, and we go to Conquest of the Planet of the Apes. This one is, I think, if out of all the movies, this is the most politically, like, the firebomb out of the entire series. And I don't think people would think, looking at Planet of the Apes, the old Planet of the Apes movies, that if they would have watched this movie, I don't think they really expect what they were getting. Like, because this is like a political movie, like the whole friggin' movie. Like,
this is race riots.
Yeah, it is. Yes. And that's what they did. It's like, it's the whole story of the apes basically becoming humans' pets, and how the apes revolt against the humans because they're being mistreated. I mean, it's like, it's slavery. It's obvious as hell. It's total slavery. And even to the fact that it's, I mean, I don't mean this in an insulting way, but they use the apes as a metaphor for black people, which is kind of, it kind of is. But I mean, but you know, the movie was, from what I heard, was very popular with the black audience in the 70s because of the fact that they got it. They knew. Like, I mean, I think pretty much anybody who saw it got it, but like, they knew what was going on. They're like, okay, we can relate to this. And so, but I mean, but yeah, I love Planet Apes. But this is the weirdest thing. They say that Armando Asante's character, I think it's really like a throwaway line, renamed the baby ape Caesar. Like, just, he renamed him Caesar for some reason. And he picks his own name at one point in the movie when he's like the slave of like the governor, and he asks him to pick a name for himself, and he finds Caesar in the thing. But I mean, that's because he was already called Caesar. But I always find it really weird that his name was actually Milo, not Caesar.
Right.
So that's an interesting, like, connection there. Like, I don't know. They just called him Caesar. When I was watching the movie, like, a couple weeks ago, and I hadn't seen it in a while, I'm like, wait a second. When did he become Caesar? Like, I actually must have just missed the throwaway line where they said he renamed him Caesar. Because I'm like, it's barely noticeable that, like, if you're watching them in audio, you're like, okay, it was Milo, then Caesar. Wait, what? And it's interesting because Roddy McDowall came back to play Caesar. He played his own son, which worked. But it's different, though. He's a great actor because it doesn't feel like Cornelius when you're watching.
No, not at all. And, you know, and a great thing, too, that like, one of the reasons that they kept coming back, you know, Kim Hunter and Roddy McDowall, like, when you watch them versus you watch any of the other Ape performances, especially as the series went on, like, they really knew how to work their appliances and make their mouths work. And like, right before Cornelius dies in Escape, like Roddy McDowall, like, blows out a whole lot of, like, oxygen after he gets shot, and he, like, makes his...
Yeah, he gets like a thing with his face,
he makes his mouth puff up, and you're like, that's somebody who studied how to make this work.
Yeah.
Because the mouth movement was so much of the ape mystique.
Right, and they said, as actors, they realized that in order to make those, they had to really, like go nuts with the muscles in their face. Yeah. Like, it was actually pretty exhausting for them after a while because they had to really accentuate their movements so that it would come through in the makeup.
Yeah, and then when he started playing Caesar, you know, he still knew how to work it, but he still played it as an entirely different character. And you, like you said, you can't see, you know, he's not playing the same character.
No, he's not.
He's not lazy about it at all.
No, he's not, actually. He's not lazy about it. The only thing that is, is his voice. That's it. That's the only thing that really connects them, is because that sounds like Cornelius.
Yeah, but it's fine because it's Cornelius' kid.
It's his kid, so it works. That movie is so dark though. Like it even to the point where they knew they were making a dark movie when they made it, because the color palette in the movie is dark. They purposely, like, everybody's wearing blacks and there's dark reds, and it's like, it's very Nazi-esque actually, with the SS with the black and the red. Like,
and they had the same kind of uniform, and the hats were the same as the Nazis, and like you said about the color, it's great because the apes are wearing the color, and everybody else is black and gray.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, because they're the victims. It's like they stand out in that way as the victims in the movie.
Yeah,
and I think it's a great movie, and it turns into this crazy revolt where the apes revolt against man, basically, who's treating them as slaves. And man, does it go nuts! And it's actually what's interesting about the movie is there's the two different versions of the movie. I don't know if I'm sure you have the set, so you've seen. Yeah. I tend to just watch the extended version when I watch it. That's the better version. But there are two completely different endings. There's the original ending, the ending that the filmmakers intended for the movie, where basically the apes revolt. Caesar does this big speech at the end, and basically says, welcome to the planet of the apes, and we're gonna take over now, and we're not gonna let you treat us like this. And then they killed humans. They actually attacked them. Yes. They bludgeoned them, and that's how it originally ended. And I guess they were worried about the whole race riot concept back in the day, so they decided, well, this needs to have a little bit happier ending. So they reshot his speech. And what is
they did the close-ups on his eyes?
Yeah,
so you couldn't see his mouth.
Right. And then it ends with him saying that we need to respect and love each other instead. So they don't do the kill the humans at the end type thing. They hold off on that.
Right.
But it's funny because it's very subtle. It's there's not a huge difference between the two different versions of the movies, other than the fact that you have there's some violence. In the extended version, it's gorier. There's bloodier shots when people get shot and stuff like that.
Apes get shot in the face.
I know, there are shots where you see face blow apart.
Yes.
It's brutal.
For the 70s? Oh, that's amazing.
I know, it's pretty awesome. And like we said, the G rated, this one might have actually been PG, I think, because of it was a little darker. But these movies were aimed towards kids.
Right. Which probably also leads to why they wanted to change the ending, because they didn't want to lose the kids.
Because they didn't want to lose the kids.
Right.
I think they lost the kids in the riot at the end of that movie. I mean, I don't know about you, but because I don't remember when I first saw those movies. They all just kind of blended together into one thing in my head when I was a kid, and then when I got older, I revisited them and then really kind of appreciated them. But I don't know. I would be terrified if I was a 10-year-old kid seeing that movie for the first time, and those apes are attacking. I'd be horrified of those apes,
right?
Because they're kind of scary looking anyway. Just there's something about the way they look. There's a creepy factor to them.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and that's part of, again, the way the mouths moved, because you didn't have makeup to do that in the 70s. And then you see those apes and you see their mouth move, but not kind of move, but not. You could tell they weren't wearing a mask that covered their whole face.
Yeah. So
the movements were really weird to look at and kind of creepy. So that added to the fact of it.
Right. And they And it's I always find it very interesting, because this is a practical versus CGI kind of discussion as well, if you want to think of it this way. There's something about you got a room full of guys at computers drawing stuff, or you have these artists. I mean, there are CGI. There are artists among CGI. You can't knock that.
Sure.
But and they do a lot. It is art. It is an art form to a certain degree. Making and it's amazing some of the stuff that they can do now. It really is. But there's just something different about the practical effects, the makeup, the time the actors. I mean, these actors had to wear these prosthetics for hours. They spent hours getting them put on. They had to learn how to act through them. There is such an art form to it that I don't know. It's two different worlds. It's and I'm not saying that it's bad what they're doing now, but I can almost see how modern fans that weren't so much into the old movies would look at the new movies and say, like, when I like the new movies, but they would look at those and go, oh, they look so real, they look so amazing, they look kind of cheesy with the makeup and stuff. But there's so much effort put into, and money and effort put into that makeup that's like, I think it gets overlooked now when people rewatch stuff like that and they just think, oh, it's cheesy, it doesn't look as good.
But you know, wearing that makeup lets the actor get into the character,
right?
And you know, and that's how you get a Roddy McDowall performance.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, versus now, like now, all right, you have Andy Serkis. Andy Serkis is the motion capture king.
He's the dude.
He can get into any character he needs to, but he's, I think, in the minority of motion capture actors.
He is.
You know?
He's an anomaly. He puts so much of himself into it that, like, it works. But I'm sure there are handfuls of actors that just phone it in. They just go through the process. Because, I mean, come on. I mean, being like an independent filmmaker, and I mean, we've done things on very low budget levels compared to what we're talking about. But, like, you know, the whole idea of acting in front of, like, blue screen with nothing to work off of is such a weird concept to me. Like, I'm not a fan of working like that personally. Like, I would always want to do things practically. Like, that's what I grew up with. I have a thing, I just like that. Like, you know, I like to be able to pick something up, to look at something, to do something. But it must be such a different world for an actor to work off a green screen like that, like, constantly. And you see it in the performances in some movies specifically.
Absolutely.
You know?
I mean, yeah, look at you know, Jar Jar Binks.
Right, the prequel.
I mean, everybody hates Jar Jar Binks the character because of what he said and whatever. But just look at him, look at his movements and stuff. And he's not really doing a whole hell of a lot.
No, he's not. And you know, I wonder. Okay, and this is a little off the subject, but with the Star Wars prequels, say they did the same exact movies but everything practical. I wonder if they would get the kind of backlash that they get as CGI movies if they were all practical. If Jar Jar Binks was a practical character, a guy in a suit, would it have come off well? Like, would it have been more appreciated? I think it might. I don't know.
I think it would have been.
I mean, maybe they would have been a little different, the movies. Like, they just would have been a little different. But I almost think maybe they would have been a little better if they were just all practical. A little bit of CGI, but mostly practical. You know?
Here's another thing, kind of a little flip side of that. Again, I'm off track, but imagine if the Star Wars prequels were done by Weta instead of Lucas, instead of Skywalker or Lucasfilm, whatever. Because Weta, I mean, kicks ass with their
and they
CGI.
like to do they do 75% practical and then like add the CGI into it, and it's amazing what they pull off.
So imagine if Weta had done the CGI for the prequels, then I bet they'd still be appreciated more.
And well, because they would be more physical.
Right.
They'd have people in costumes.
Right.
They'd have they wouldn't just. I honestly, I think it's more of. I would imagine that there's going to be a lot of practical with the new Star Wars movie, Star Wars the 7th movie coming out, the J.J. Abrams movie. I would imagine it's going to be more the Weta approach to CGI for the CGI that's used in the movie. Because you know there's going to be CGI in the movie. There's not going to be 100% practical. There's going to be some CGI in the movie. Of course,
but for that... And they have Andy Serkis.
And they're going to mix it,
So it's the best of everything.
Yeah, there you go.
But that's Star Wars.
That's Star Wars. We got a little off track. But that's okay. But we're at Conquest of the Planet Apes. I love Conquest of the Planet Apes. It is a political, pot boiler, basically.
It's a gut punch, that movie. That whole movie is a gut punch. And isn't it funny, too, that as each Apes movie was made, the budget got less...
Yes,
but the quality of the films, like the depth of the films, got better and better. I
agree. I think so. Like they just got you have. I think out of the entire series of the original Planet of the Apes movies, 2 movies really stand out. It's Escape and Conquest. I mean, the original Planet of the Apes is great, and I like Beneath and stuff. Those 2 movies really stand out as amazing examples of 70s filmmaking, kind of on the edge, filmmaking of the 70s, and they really do fit that to 100%. And it's those 2 movies particular. I mean, the whole series is great, but those 2 movies really stand out for it, like that. But now, okay, we'll move forward a little bit. Now we're going into of the original series of the Planet of the Apes movies. This is the final original series movie, Battle for the Planet of the Apes from 1973. This was also directed by J. Lee Thompson. He stayed for another one because they thought he did... a good job.
Well, doesn't it seem like when you watch the two of them, that they are one long movie?
Yeah.
You know?
It kind of does, because it feels like... And this movie, for Battle for the Planet of the Apes, has I want to say the tone that most people who grew up around Planet of the Apes remember. If you saw any of the TV series or whatnot, the TV series kind of was a direct response to this movie. And I remember them saying that they wanted to go back to a more kid-friendly movie for this last movie, so they brought it down a little bit. It's a little... Now, I guess this is kind of like... If I'm saying what my least favorites of the series are, and I like this movie. I'm not saying I don't like this movie. Beneath and Battle are kind of my least favorites of the original series.
Well, funny thing... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's pretty much what I was going to say.
Oh, okay. I mean, well, like, on your point... And isn't it funny that both of them have a missile and cause radiation?
Yeah, what is that? Maybe I got some kind of missile and radiation thing going on. I don't know.
But like it's funny too, because I mean, obviously, Battle was supposed to play off the original, or not the original, but the theatrical ending of Conquest. So, because it opens with man and ape kind of working together.
Yeah, which if you watch the extended or original cut, it doesn't work
make sense
with it, because it's dark.
But the theatrical it does, because Caesar says to save the human, spare the humans. And then, it's kind of like they jump a gap of a couple years or however many years so they can build their tree houses and whatever.
Right, because it starts with the lawgiver, that character of the lawgiver, which was their guy. They're like Socrates, so to speak, like for their era, telling the children the story. But we're not at Charlton Heston phase, are we though? It's a different timeline. That's the thing. I was looking at the timeline. They make a note of saying that when Cornelius and Zira hit New York in Escape, it's a different timeline for the Planet of the Apes stories than the original Planet of the Apes. It's not leading up to it. They're technically changing history. But it's still kind of telling the same story, but changing history. Yeah. There's not that much of a difference between like the history and that. But it's I don't know. The timeline's wacky in those original movies. It's a little crazy.
Regardless, they're still not 2,000 years in advance, because the humans couldn't have survived underground with a missile for 2,000 years.
Right.
So I just always assumed it was the same. Maybe like a couple of years had gone by.
They're just the years on it are earlier. If you look at the years, the year for how it works is this: they The year for the lawgiver at the beginning of Battle, I don't remember exactly what it is, but if you look at it, because I paid attention to it last time, is before Taylor shows up. Okay, it's a couple hundred years before. It's like 200 or 300 years before Taylor shows up. But then they go back and they tell you an even earlier story, which is right after like the events of Conquest of the Planet. It's a couple years after the events of Conquest of the because Caesar is still not much older, really. Right. He's a couple years older. He's got his own kid now. Yeah. Like in the story of in that story. And I mean, I enjoy that movie. I think it's really good. I think what makes, for me, where the movie falls apart a little bit, and then it's a little bit where it's not Beneath the Planet of the Apes falling apart, because I still feel like I enjoy that movie whenever I watch it, is we get into that underground world again, where you see those people again, but they're not as ridiculous as the Beneath. But they're not at that point yet either, if they're not that far in the timeline. It's crazy. It's like talking about Back to the Future. It gets a little nutty, but yeah. Any thoughts on that one?
I really like that one, because it still keeps the whole politics thing.
It does.
And Paul Williams does a really good job.
Here we go. We got Paul Williams in it. Yeah, he's great in it.
And a very young John Landis.
John Landis is in it for like 2 seconds. He's one of these like slave dudes, and I think I found him the last time, but it's very quick.
Yeah, he's the guy.
He's got like long hair and like a scruffy beard almost.
Yeah, and he's given the piggyback ride to the ape.
That was the guy. That was him. Yeah. Okay. It's quick. It's really quick. You gotta like look for him, but it's funny. Like it's interesting that he's in it. Yeah. But that was his thing. He started off like a stuntman, didn't he? Like, and he just did like a lot of bit parts in these movies.
He did whatever he could.
Yeah.
But this one, like the great thing about this movie is now you start to turn back again, because now the apes are kind of subjugating man. It kind of gets to that, and so you're like. Your loyalty in this whole series just keeps going here and there, and
it bounces back and forth. Yeah, totally. And I like how when you get towards the end of Battle for the Planet of the Apes, you have that little competition because you have what's the character's name? The I don't remember it. It's the gorilla. He's the
General. Is it Ursus or something like that?
Yeah, it's like Ursus or something like that. Like he's not gonna have anything to do with fucking humans. He hates the humans, and like that's the whole subplot with him hating the humans. And I like how they get to how he ends up. They kill Caesar's son by accident, sort of by accident. They were gonna kill him. They were gonna get him because he was in the tree. They were gonna go after him, and he ends up getting killed. And that starts the whole ball rolling, which is funny to me because I think there's elements for the new Planet of the Apes movies. Dawn is like a combination of Conquest and Battle for the Planet of the Apes.
It absolutely is.
It totally is. Because they've got the apes in their habitat. It's the same idea. It's almost... I wouldn't go as far to say it's a remake because it is different, but they use a lot of the same concepts.
Yeah, I mean, Rocket in Dawn is the general in...
right. Conquest. It's the same thing. It's that concept. Yeah. It's that confluence of characters like that. But yeah, I do appreciate it. There's a lot of things about it I do appreciate it. And I feel different about it every time I watch it. But it's one of those things that by the time I get there, you just feel... That movie is such a series of movies where if I start with Planet of the Apes, by the end of the week, I've gone through to Battle. Yeah. I have to watch them all. I feel like I need to watch the whole series every time I start. That's why, sometimes, I won't even watch Planet of the Apes. I'm like, well, if I watch Planet of the Apes, man, I'm going to be watching Apes for the rest of this week. So it's like... But I can watch those movies over and over again.
Right.
Just something about them is just very entertaining. Right. I don't know. And sometimes some people I actually my buddy Peter Lambert who hadn't watched the movies in years because his father who he was really into he loved the Planet of the Apes movies, his dad. And Pete's like, yeah, my dad used to like those movies all the time, and I'm like you should really rewatch those movies because then I got into them and he watched them again. He's like, they're a lot better than you remember them being when you rewatch them. Especially if you grew up in our era, you're just so used to that ape makeup that you kind of forget how good the movies actually are.
Right.
You know what I mean? That how they're great examples of science fiction from that era. That's science fiction adventure movies. That's what they are, 100%. But I do like Battle. I don't know, anything else you want to say about Battle? It kind of just closes off the whole thing. It feels like you said, an extension of Conquest. It's like the humans and the apes again in their habitat. And if you're familiar with the newer movies, you might actually have a good appreciation for that movie because you get to see a lot of the similar elements that they're playing off of in the newer movies.
Yeah, and I mean, it ends the series on a peaceful note, but even at the very end, they give that hint that it's not going to remain peaceful.
It's the lawgiver statue with the tear.
Yeah, with the tear. Which in what was it? Was it Beneath where he cried blood? The statue.
Yeah, the statue cried blood. Right. Yeah.
But that was like a hologram by the underground dwellers.
The people.
But yeah, it turned from blood to a tear. So I guess you're in a better. I don't know. That's very interesting.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Now we're gonna get to what. I mean, and that's the original 5 Planet of the Apes movies, classic series. I mean, I can watch those movies over and over again. Anybody who's just getting into them through the new movies and can appreciate old. I didn't think you can't appreciate older movies. I think people can appreciate those movies. I mean, if you like the new movies, you kind of owe it to yourself to go back and watch the original 5 Planet of the Apes movies because they're just cool. They're kind of pinnacles of special effects for their era. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's some of the later movies when you get into Battle. There's a lot of people they have so many apes. They start putting them in masks, and the masks look cheaper.
Because the budget was lower.
Yeah, because their budgets went lower and lower. I think they said they had $1 million or $2 million or something to make the final one. So their budget was really low,
right?
Comparatively for considering the other movies. But then we go into one of the most divisive entrances in the series. All right, this is going to be interesting to talk about. Planet of the Apes remake in 2001. With Mark Wahlberg. It was directed by Tim Burton. Many can say it was kind of came out in the era of Tim Burton's I'm just going to remake everything under the sun period.
I think he's still in that.
He hasn't gotten out of that, really. I feel like he should because I feel like Tim Burton has a lot to say and he's a very good filmmaker. I think like, looking back on it, I think Edward Scissorhands, like, and it's a random one to pick up, but if you haven't seen Edward Scissorhands in a while, rewatch that movie again. That is one of the fucking most beautiful movies I've ever seen. It's a gorgeous movie. It is a beautiful love story. It's beautifully filmed. And the movie's a work of art. When you watch that movie, it's a work of art. And it has homages to the old Universal horror, like, and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of the, Dr. Frankenstein thing going on
Right.
in the movie. It's a beautiful movie. And I feel like Tim Burton needs to do something personal again. So, but who knows if he even has anything personal left in him at this point, right? I mean, he's the Hollywood director. He's become that at this point. But his remake of Planet of the Apes in 2001, which, when it originally came out, I was very... As a matter of fact, I want to say that the remake of Planet of the Apes, for me, was what got me back... It made me want to go back and watch the original ones again because I hadn't seen him in years. And it kind of made me go... Well, I remember these original ones were better than this movie, so like it made me want to watch the original ones. And then I think it all kind of happened around the same time for me, but I'm not sure. My memory's a little hazy there, but yeah, I have more appreciation for this movie the more I watch it as I get older. Like I don't think it's as bad as people made it out to be. Like It did well when it originally came out. Like, people liked it when it came out, but then as time went by, they started saying, well, it doesn't hold up. It doesn't hold up. I think the one thing that movie does really, really well is it advanced the ape makeup to a point where, like, now we're doing real apes in the real movies, and it's CGI real apes. But they could have went with that ape makeup from the Tim Burton era because the ape makeup is amazing.
Rick Baker, man.
Rick Baker, right?
Yeah.
Okay, there you go. It's amazing in that movie. Like, they look like apes, but they act like people, and it still has that sense of wonderment to it that the original Planet of the Apes movies did. But yeah, it looks technologically advanced, but it's still makeup. It's still. It's appliances. And it's not even CGI enhanced, I don't think, for the most part. I think it's all just physical makeup because it doesn't look like it when you're watching the movie. But what are your opinions on that movie?
So, I don't really like the movie.
Yeah, okay.
And it's a shame because I really like most of the acting. I really like most of the actors. Like, I like their careers. I love Tim Roth. I didn't really dig Helena Bonham Carter or Michael Clark Duncan. Is that his name?
You mean Michael Jackson?
Michael Jackson.
Yeah. It's funny. She looks just like Michael Jackson.
Oh, yeah, she does. But I didn't really like them too, and I think they're better actors than they are in that movie. But, like, Tim Roth, I thought was amazing. Paul Giamatti was great.
Oh, he was great. Paul Giamatti is great in that movie.
And, and I don't mind the idea of the movie. It's like I should like it, but I just didn't like the execution of it.
There's a disconnect there, though, because last time I watched the movie, like you said, all the elements are there. All the elements, the makeup's there, the look is there, the style is there, everything's there. But there's something about, and you can almost place it to a late 90s, early 2000s style of filmmaking. Because I've noticed that some of those movies, you go back and watch them, the late 90s, I'm talking like 98, 99, 2000, right on the line. That there's a datedness to the style of filmmaking at that time period, overuse of music, way too much. And I mean, Elfman did the score again for that movie, but it's way too much score in that movie. It's just one of those movies where the score never friggin' stops, and it's like, you start getting like, you get annoyed by the music after a while because you just like for me at home when I'm watching movies, like I have a good surround sound setup and it's fine for me, but like that movie has such dramatic fucking dynamic range that like you're watching the movie and all of a sudden the music kicks in, like you're like, holy shit, it's like 1 o'clock in the morning, like Jesus Christ, it actually annoys me to ride the freaking volume through the whole movie, fucking movie. It drives me nuts actually watching the movie. And I mean, that's a weird thing to play into the reason why it bugs me a little bit at times, but that's one thing about it that bugs me. It's the score music is a little too bombastic. It's too much. It's too modern for it. But there are elements of the movie that works really well. Like I said, the ape makeup works. The actors are all competent. Right. Like, I just don't know where the disconnect is. Maybe it's a little too long. Maybe it meanders a little bit too much in some of the more action-oriented sequences. It gets that modern film thing where like the action scenes, they kind of go on for too long and you just kind of like want to get back into the characters. Maybe, I don't know, maybe it should have been more character-driven. I do actually feel like Mark Wahlberg's character in the movie he's supposed to be the equivalent of the Charlton Heston character, but his character is barely developed.
Yeah.
He's action boy that runs from one scene to the next throughout the whole movie. And while I like Mark Wahlberg as an actor, I've grown to appreciate him.
Mm-hmm.
That point of his career wasn't he hadn't quite become that good of an actor yet. He's a little flat as an actor at that point in his career.
Was that out before Boogie Nights?
Yes.
So that
2001, yes, I think, right? I would have to look, but because
Boogie Nights is where he really broke out as like you can say, oh wow, he can act.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, regardless of whether it's before or after, Boogie Nights really feels like he can act.
Yeah, but this one not so much.
He feels like there's a disconnect there. And maybe I don't know. Maybe it was the actors. Maybe it was the whole production. There was just a disconnect from like what was going on. All the pieces are there. The movie should feel better to you when you watch it than it actually does. It is watchable, and if you're into the series, I check it out. You know, some people like it, some people don't. I actually like the ending. How when the ending has like that, almost like that original Planet of the Apes twist when he goes back to the real world,
right?
And it's like the apes, it's ape society. That kind of almost feels like Conquest of the Planet of the Apes or something with apes. He shows up in what is it? The Lincoln Memorial is an ape. It's instead
right. That was a good twist. I will give it. I liked seeing the gorillas in the police uniform.
Yeah, that looked cool. It was very classic. It kind of felt like old school Planet of the Apes because they had like the black vests. They were definitely trying to give you that feeling, I think, from the original Planet of the Apes. But I don't know. I'm not sure that there is even that much more to talk about with this movie. It's kind of flat.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make a quick mention. Like I said, we don't have too much to talk about this, but there was a cartoon series that came out after the original series, and there was a TV series. Now, I attempted to watch the TV series. I'll have a little bit of knowledge about the TV series. I bought it when I was into the Planet of the Apes. I bought the series when it came out on DVD. I got about 5-6 episodes into the series, and I got burnt out with it because the television series is the same friggin' plot every single episode. It's like The Fugitive, but the Planet of the Apes version. Basically, you've got these astronauts. Again, it's the same fucking plot as the first two movies. They end up there. They end up with like the I don't even know if it's Cornelius and Zero, or if I think they might have changed the character names. But it is Roddy McDowall playing the character again. I don't remember too well, and every episode it's like the gorilla apes find out about these and they have to escape them. It's every single episode, and they try to tie some topical issues into it from the time, like some political stuff into it. But it just feels like it has that stunted feeling like it's the same thing every single episode. You're like, okay, apes are going to figure out you're there, and then you got to escape from the apes, and then somebody has like a serious message at the end.
It seems like from what I saw in the documentary, which if you get the Blu-ray of Planet of the Apes, the documentary on it, Behind the Planet of the Apes, is great.
It's an incredible documentary. It was actually released separately on its own before the Blu-ray came out. It used to be available on its own.
Right.
So.
Roddy McDowall hosts it and whatever, but it's great. Anyway, looking at the clips they showed on that, it almost looked like that season of Dukes of Hazzard when Bo and Luke were gone. You know, it's like
and it's like it's the same thing every single episode, and like they're following a formula with the show. I mean, the show only lasted one season, so that kind of tells you that it didn't do very well. Like I think, oddly enough, I think it was re-syndicated, which is funny because it's a one-season TV show, and it actually got re-syndicated. I think they tied it all in with the movies. They used to show the movies and the series like on like Channel 56 or something like that out of Boston from this area, but I don't know. But yeah, those were other things that involving the Planet of the Apes. I don't know too much about the cartoon, but go ahead.
Oh, one more thing to tie into the original series.
Yeah.
Do you know the thing about the Tombs of the Blind Dead?
Well, I know Tombs of the Blind Dead. Yeah, what's the...
They tried to tie Tombs of the Blind Dead into the Planet of the Apes series for the drive-ins because Planet of the Apes was so popular.
Oh, wow.
They tacked on. You can see it on the Tombs of the Blind Dead DVD as an extra. They tacked on, or you can see it on YouTube if you
want. I got to check that out, man. I totally forgot. I didn't know about this.
For the drive-in release Tombs of the Blind Dead, they tacked on a little thing in the beginning where it very loosely tied that franchise into the Planet of the Apes.
Wow, that's a random thing to tie to the Planet of the Apes.
Yes.
They do kind of get that tone, though, by the end of the Blind Dead movies.
They do.
When you get to, like, Night of the Seagulls and stuff like that, where they're being attacked by these things, but yeah.
But this was, like, for the first Blind Dead movie.
The original Tombs of the Blind Dead.
They just wanted Apes fans to go watch it and pay the money to go. Like, it was just purely marketing.
Wow.
Yeah.
They did so much of that in the 70s with the there was a company called Hallmark releasing, which is released The Last House on the Left, because I read a book on Last House on the Left, so I know about this stuff. But what they would do is they would pick up Italian movies, retitle them something close to something American, and then advertise them to try to fit with that American thing. Like, there was a whole slew of don't movies coming out, like that they spoofed in, like, Grindhouse, the whole spoof. But these were movies that had completely different names. Don't Look in the Window, Don't Open the Door. Like, actually, Don't Go in the Basement, which I love, which is a great movie. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie. No. It's a 70s movie about an insane asylum. They actually made a sequel to it now, a modern sequel. It's this guy named SF Brownwig made it, and his son made a sequel. It's supposed to be coming out. It looks awesome, actually. And they use an original character reference from the old 70s drive-in movie and everything. It's pretty friggin' cool. No, it'll never get... It'll be released on, like, DVD, and you won't be able to find it anywhere, but, I mean, I'll watch it. Isn't that awful? I don't mean to slap the filmmaker. I mean, he probably made a great friggin' movie, but it just sucks. This is the culture we live in, you know? Unless you know, you made a Marvel movie or a horror remake. It doesn't matter. Right? But, anyway. Yeah, I don't know. Don't Go in the Basement was actually called The Forgotten, because it's about a bunch of people in a mental institution. But they changed the title Don't Go in the Basement because you got Don't Go in the Window, Don't Go in the, don't open the door, Don't look in the bathroom, don't shit on the floor. Like, there's a million don't movies, and they're all Italian movies. Don't Open the Window is actually Let Sleeping Corpses Lie. If you've ever seen that movie, it's a zombie movie, a British zombie movie, which is actually pretty cool. But I mean, we're getting a little off subject from the Planet of the Apes movies here. But that's a really interesting fact. I did not know that they tried to tie the Tombs of the Dead. That is, that's so out there that I wouldn't even have thought of that.
It's just like a voiceover where this guy talks about some apocalypse and whatever, and and the rise of an ape culture or something like that. And then they were wiped out by the Knights, the Knights Templar. Yeah, wow. I'm like, this is insane.
That's crazy.
But yeah, you can see it on YouTube. It's great.
Oh wow, that's awesome. Okay, so now we are into the modern era of ape movies. Now we're into, I guess you would call, the reboot, remakes, whatever. We'll start obviously with the first one because we're going in order. Rise of the Planet of the Apes from 2011, which is random. Directed by a guy named Rupert Wyatt. That's a random name. I actually expected to... No offense, I expected to recognize this director's name more. Rupert Wyatt. He did Rise of the Planet of the Apes. I don't really know anything else. He made a movie called The Escapist, Get the Picture, Subterrane. Yeah, okay. So he did... All right. But it's pretty amazing that he got
this... Good for him.
It's amazing that he got this big of a movie.
Yeah, he did a good job.
Has 7 movies listed here, okay, on his thing. He made a movie called Subterrane in 2001, Get the Picture, The Escapist, then Rise of the Planet of the Apes. Obviously, somebody saw, maybe there's something pretty impressive in some of his early movies that most likely he's probably from another country, I would imagine. Co-founder of Picture Farm, the award-winning London and New York-based production collective, which includes filmmakers Adrian Sturgis, Ben Friedman, Damian Lewis, Mark Singer. Okay. I don't know if that's the same Mark Singer.
Beastmaster?
I don't know if it's the Beastmaster. I don't think it's the Beastmaster. It's probably a different Mark Singer.
That would be a cool crossover, Beastmaster and Planet of the Apes.
I don't know. There's no information. I mean, I'm sure it's here somewhere, but yeah, well, whatever. It did a lot of short films. Okay, they did a lot of short films, and they won awards for short films, and that's how they became known. This guy became known. pretty impressive. This guy from the UK ended up making that big of a fucking movie in the United States.
Yeah.
Wow, that's an interesting story in its own right. So Rise of the Planet of the Apes. Now, I really, when I saw Rise of the Planet of the Apes, at that point, I was a big fan of the original Planet of the Apes movies. Mm-hmm. And I was really looking forward to it. Like, when I saw I'm like, oh, I gotta see it. And then, of course, my wife, Kay's like, oh, not a freaking ape. Another ape movie. I'm like, oh, but it's gonna be so awesome. And I was so excited to see it. And it really was good. I gotta say, I really liked Rise of the Planet of the Apes. And I was okay with going with the whole idea of making it realistic. Because with these modern Planet of the Apes movies now, it's about realism, where the apes are real apes, and you're watching them evolve through this virus, right? That they get that they were using to make the apes smart. Is that what it was?
Yeah, they were trying to cure Alzheimer's. And
right.
They were testing
John Lithgow had Alzheimer's. What's his name's father in the movie there? James Franco's dad in the first one. And it made the apes smarter, and that's how that whole thing starts, with the apes getting smart. Now, technically, that doesn't fit at all if you think about that. We've just gone through this whole mythology, and that doesn't. The filmmakers are saying they can connect them, but this is an alternate timeline yet again, because you're dealing with Caesar, who's named Caesar right from birth. He's Caesar, and that's the Caesar character.
Right.
There never is a Cornelius and Zira. Like, those characters don't exist. So it's a definite new story. Like, I mean, I don't know. I'm sure there are people out there who have analyzed this to no end and can tell you every little detail. Like you said, like the astronaut thing. They show the astronaut getting sent into space.
Right. So they show you Charlton Heston's ship going
That's
away.
supposed to be Taylor, I guess,
right.
as far as we know.
So, like, this Caesar isn't the Caesar to go. It's just, someone else will be named Caesar down the line. So it's tenuous. They can.
It's in the line of Caesars, I guess. I guess you could almost look at it as there's like a historical family line of Caesars.
Yeah. So theoretically, Zira and Cornelius and all them, they wouldn't come for a long time.
Yes. Because we're dealing with modern era. We're dealing with the 2000s in the new Apes movies. I mean, people have iPads.
Right.
Like, I mean, it's modern. Like, so. It's a different, but I mean, I'm totally with this storyline. Like, I'm ready to go with it for a couple more movies. Like, if they're ready to make more movies, I really like the storyline. But so your opinions of Rise of the Planet of the Apes?
Oh yeah, it was great. I went to Boston to see it. Me and my friend and I were my friend lived in Boston. And we were so excited, and both Apes fans. He actually gave me the head for the DVD set. I see you've got a different head.
I've got one. That's from the 2001 remake, the Planet of the Apes. That's the head gorilla.
Right, that's Michael
Actually, that's the guy from the Green Mile.
Yeah, Michael Clark Duncan. Yeah. I have the Cornelius set, or actually it's it's Caesar. It's Caesar. It's McDowell. But it was the one that had all the DVDs and the cartoon and the TV show.
Cool.
He didn't give me the discs. He kept those. But for storage reasons, he didn't have the space. So he's like, you want the head?
So you have the head?
So I have the head with nothing in it,
now,
right?
does the head look pretty nice?
It's great.
It's a cool looking head?
It's gorgeous.
I remember that thing when it came out. It was in a big friggin' box.
Yeah. Oh, it's amazing. Like, it has workable zippers. It's got
cool.
Yeah.
And it's original. It's McDowell. It's
right,
a classic.
Right.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so it's great. But anyway, so we were really excited to go see it, and our expectations were very high for it, and it was like we walked out just quiet because it's one of those where you just keep thinking about it.
Yeah, it really was. It really had like the classic 70s sci-fi thing going on for the movie, which is what I've liked about both of them so far. The new movies is. They are a throwback to the older style of science fiction movie, which is pretty cool, actually, because a lot of modern science fiction movies are just straightforward action films in disguise, basically. They're with a thread of a sci-fi concept. These are actually like pretty. They're going for the political elements. They're there, like the political thing. I want to say it's not as in your face in the new movies. They do go for the spectacle more. Because that's the modern way of movies, but But it is there. It's definitely there in the movies. The whole thing. But I like that they kept with character too as well. They're very character driven stories. But Rise of the Planet of the Apes is really character driven story. It really is just the story of that. Yeah.
And I mean each ape has its own personality, or each character. Much like you could tell in the original series, you could tell them by name. That's this one. That's this one. You can do that in the new stuff too.
Yeah, you can. You totally can. Actually, yeah, they're characters, 100% characters. Like the orangutan character, I'm not sure what his name is, but that's a character. Right. Because they bring him into Dawn as well, and it's a really I really enjoyed Rise of the Planet of the Apes. And I mean, come on, when I saw that movie in the movie theater for the first time, how freaking cool was the end sequence where they attack the bridge and everything they finally, and then they head up to the woods. It's like, it really builds to that kind of classic, you get to the end of that movie and you're pumped. When that movie ended, I wanted the next Ape movie. I'm like, I want to see, and then we both like that movie. So I guess we can move forward because there's not, other than we both really enjoyed the movie. I mean, I think it's a great movie, and I think I hope that those movies could introduce, and I'm kind of almost in a way, by us doing this podcast and talking about all these movies, maybe somebody out there that like the new movies that hasn't seen the whole movies, maybe they'll listen to some of what we say and they'll go oh, that's kind of cool. I want to check those movies out, because I really hope that the new series would make people go back and look at the old movies, because I think they're just as valuable. In a series, I think it really is a series of movies. I mean, you can skip the Tim Burton one if you really want to, because really that's a different storyline. It doesn't add anything to the overall arc of the film. But, I mean, it's there if you want to see it. Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, I remember, for me personally, I was psyched about that movie from, the initial, teaser things that they were showing, of the apes, and stuff like that. I mean, I was psyched when I heard that they were doing another one. I'm like, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, and when I saw that freaking poster on the fucking horse with the thing, I'm like, they know they know who they're making this movie for. They're making this movie for these diehard Planet of the Apes fans. And that's what I feel with Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, you start with that whole first half hour where they're living in their habitat. Mm-hmm. That's where you get the elements of the classic Planet of the Apes franchise. I think that's the Apes movie that we wanted as fans of the original series. Dawn of the Planet of the Apes is the Apes movie we wanted to see. Them in their own habitat, them conflicting with the humans, the classic ape movie scenarios. Really,
it has that. It has that, again, we talk about Star Wars, it has that original trilogy kind of feel where Star Wars kind of established everything and it was really cool.
Yeah.
But then when Empire came, you went, now shit is serious.
That's what it feels like. This feels like, for this series, if they only made 3 movies, this is the Empire Strikes Back of its series.
But the thing is, which any great film does, is you relate to all the characters.
Yes.
Whether they're hero or villain, you can see everybody's side and you understand why they're doing what they're doing.
Yep.
It really blurs that who really is the villain. There's nobody, twisting their curly mustache.
Yeah, there is no villain.
Yeah, it's people doing what they have to do they feel to survive.
Right. And like we said before, you get that battle for the Planet of the Apes, conflict with the general, the ape, the gorilla,
right?
The head of the gorillas and stuff like that. Who it's the same concept. He's not for the humans, doesn't want to have anything to do with the humans, and he feels like they can't be trusted.
Right.
Basically.
And you understand why.
Right. And they set up why, because he was tortured as a lab gorilla.
Right. Which they actually do. They do that better than the original.
They do.
Because you never understood why he didn't. He just hated humans.
And you
go, well, fuck you. But
they give him a reason.
Yes, he has
a solid
a
reason.
Right.
And I said this. We were talking about this a couple of weeks ago, and for me, my wife, she kind of laughed at me. She's like, I got choked up at one part of that movie, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. I thought it was done so well. The one section, and I mean, like I said, this is spoiler-driven, this whole friggin' thing, so if you haven't seen it, maybe you shouldn't listen to this, but there's a section of the movie where the whole idea of the humans, they're trying to turn the power back on to get their power running, and they need to go to a certain section of the forest to deal with this dam that's over there or something like that. They had to fix something. There's a I don't know, there's a power plant in the dam and stuff. They have to fix that. And they had to get permission from the apes because that's where the ape world was, and that's how the humans and the apes realize, oh shit, they're there and we're here. Like, what are we gonna do? Like, who's in charge, kind of thing. But regardless of that, there's a whole section where they're working and they get the power on, and the power comes back on. And I love the concept of these people not having power for years. Like, years. They've been living in darkness, just like apocalyptic, kind of Walking Dead style, you know what I mean? And all of a sudden the power comes on. And then they have I think it was The Weight by the band that they played. I'm pretty sure it was the song. Yeah, it was The Weight by the band that played. And it was so classic. That's such a classic moment. And it's like, you really feel for the humans because you're like, wow, the lights just came back on. It's that moment, you know, years go by and the lights came back on. You know what I mean? Like, civilization has hope at that moment. And even the typically growly, grimaced, like, Caesar character in that movie smiles and kind of looks at the human like, wow, you did something big here.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's like an old gas station that the power comes back on, and that's when the music starts playing and stuff like that. It's just a really cool scene. It was a well done scene, and even there's the whole confrontation thing where, you know, Caesar's son, once again, gets shot by the gorilla who kind of framing the humans, and then that whole scene where everything just breaks down, and then and he sets like the ape village on fire. Like, that was one of those moments. Like, to me, that felt like, you know, like Empire Strikes Back. That felt like, you know, watching the Millennium Falcon go into that planet, like that crazy, awesome, like, oh, actually, it felt like Hoth, like the Hoth sequence where you've got all these cool, awesome things, and you're just sitting there watching these apes, like, screaming and fighting amongst each other, and their whole world in flames on the screen. That was a cinematic moment. Like, in the theater, I'm like, wow. I turned to Katie, I'm like, this is fucking cool. Like, I felt like a 10-year-old kid again, seeing like a classic movie in the movie theater. I'm like, this is really freaking cool. Right. Like, I loved Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. I mean, I love both of them, but I really loved the second one. I thought it was great.
Yeah, I mean, we're into August right now, and that is my favorite movie of the year.
Yeah, so far. I haven't seen anything else that's topped that movie. I did see Guardians of the Galaxy.
I did too.
Have you seen it? What did you think? Did you like it?
I liked it a lot. Yeah, I don't think it was better than Dawn.
No, it's not. I mean, just a random comment. I did see it, and I enjoyed Guardians of the Galaxy. It was a good movie. I actually did not know that it was official canon in the Marvel. I thought it was kind of a spoof movie. Like, I didn't know that it was...
It's... When the trailer came out, I was like, I'm not going to the theater to see this movie. Like, it's going to be silly, whatever. But it's better than a lot of the Marvel movies.
Did you like the twist at the end, the little tag?
I did, yeah.
You know, I won't tease. I actually won't give that away for anyone who hasn't seen it, and it's a funny little like tag. Like, they have the tag. It's almost like a joke. It's like James Gunn made a joke at the end, in a sense. But apparently, I mean, what it was that you saw at the end of that movie, apparently they are going forth with a new one.
Yeah, as well they should. I mean, you know, I think that movie in another director's hands would have been trouble, but James Gunn has the perfect sensibility for that movie. I
did. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a good movie. I mean, they're on very different levels. I mean, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes is kind of a political thriller. It's serious, and it's an impressive movie. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I really like Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. Do you have anything you want to say about it? Or
no, it was just like, you know, the thing is, watching it, you totally lose track of time. You're not looking at your watch. You don't go, oh, I guess probably about an hour has gone by. You have no idea how much time has gone by because they pack it with so much information and action and everything. And then they don't do a false ending, which is great, but there are a few moments, I mean, like a couple moments in the movie where you go, oh, I think this is the end of the movie. Yeah, there are. You know? Totally. Because you have no idea how much time has passed because it's so good. Mm-hmm. But then they keep going and you go, oh, there's a whole other section. This is great. There's more. This is great. Right. Yeah. And I do like how you said the thing about the false ending. One thing I appreciated about both Rise and Dawn is they made them, apart from a mythology from this whole overall story, they made them separate movies on their own. So this way, like, yeah, it would help to see Rise of the Planet of the Apes if you saw Dawn, but you could still appreciate Dawn of the Planet of the Apes if you didn't see Rise of the Planet. And the story ends. It builds to a solid conclusion and ends.
to the point where I believe that the next movie is going to jump forward like another 10 years.
Yeah.
Like they're doing like what the original Planet of the Apes series did, where they tell one story. It doesn't really start exactly from the end of where one story. They jump a few years and then they give you another piece of the history. Like that seems like how they're handling it, you know?
And and a very interesting tie-in too. They did that thing with the eye.
Yeah, I love that the way it started. Actually, that was the very end of Rise,
and
where it zoomed into Caesar's eyes, and they started from that at the beginning of Dawn, and then they went back into it again. That's really cool. Like, I just thought it was a very cool, like, I don't know, cinematic thing that they did. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It ties it all together in a nice, neat bundle. Like, you know what I mean? But I really enjoyed the movie, and I think, like, it's very hard to judge the original series of Planet of the Apes against these new movies. You can't. They're in the same universe. They're telling the same stories, so to speak. They're different movies, though. These are more for the more modern generation. These new movies, but they're keeping those elements that made us love the original ones. Enough of it's there so that we can still be psyched about these and love these as well as fans of the original movies.
Right, it's great because you find yourself not wanting to compare because you love both
Right.
series.
I don't want to say one's better than the other.
Right.
Like I like the new movies just as much as I like the old movies.
Right. This isn't prequels versus originals.
Right, and this is
Star
unique
Wars.
Because in the history of filmmaking, it always ends up like who liked the old ones, who liked the new ones, who liked the old ones. Really, they're different enough. You can like both of them for their own merits, and I do. Like,
yeah, and like our generation, and maybe a little bit older than us too, maybe a little bit younger. We're in the perfect spot where granted the original series came out before we were alive, barely, but we still got to see them as kids. And now we get to see these now, and we can still appreciate them all. Yeah. Whereas, a kid who was born, a kid who's like 15 now, and seeing the new stuff, you kind of feel bad because he never got to grow up with the original ones,
And it's quite possible because of the dated elements of the styles of the original movie, maybe some modern kids that like the new movies wouldn't be able to get into the old movies because maybe they just wouldn't. It's just the style is very different. Maybe they wouldn't. I don't know. Movies are so different now than like. Everything's so much flash now. Like the big movies that we get now in movie theaters, it's all about flash and it's all about big and like I like the Marvel series of movies. I really do. Actually, I still have to see The Winter Soldier and I have to see the latest Thor movie because those two I haven't seen yet. Have you seen those two?
I didn't see Thor. I saw Captain America.
You saw Captain America. Yeah. How was that? The Winter
Soldier? I liked
it.
It was almost like a detective story.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I actually really liked Thor, the first Thor, and I've been curious to see like the Dark World. I think it's called. I think the second one is called.
I haven't heard good things.
You haven't heard good things about it?
Maybe because Kenneth Branagh's not associated with this one.
I don't know.
But yeah, I heard enough to not go see it. I also heard terrible things about Ninja Turtles.
Oh yeah, I haven't. And the funny thing is I've never really into the Ninja. Were you into the Ninja Turtles?
I've never seen anything Ninja Turtle.
Neither have I. I've never. I maybe growing up, I might have seen a clip of the TV show in passing, but I've never. I think that was a little later than our generation. I think we were already like in high school when the Ninja Turtles were big.
Yeah, we missed that.
But I didn't even realize. I was looking through I was in Walmart and they had like all they re-released them all. They did TMNT. They remade the Ninja Turtles a couple years back, and apparently that didn't do so hot, so they rebooted it yet again. And what you said that you're hearing, not so negative, the positive things.
He said it's a story about April O'Neil that has some turtles in it.
Okay. Well, it's a Michael Bay movie. Michael Bay produced. I don't know if he directed, but I'm sure it's probably some other director. But I try with Michael Bay movies. So far, there's only one Michael Bay movie. Well, maybe like Bad Boys. I did like those movies. I haven't watched them in a long time, but I did appreciate those movies at the time. I liked Pain and Gain. There was a movie called Pain and Gain, which is actually like a crime thriller more than anything else. But I've tried. I tried rewatching The Rock, and everybody loves the fucking Rock. People talk about that movie like honest to God, when I was watching that movie, I'm like, this is the movie that people are talking about. It was dumb to me.
I'm not a fan.
It just did nothing for me. I was actually pissed off that I spent money on it because I'd heard so many good things about it. I so much praise to this movie, like a classic action movie, and I'm a big action fan, so I'm like, all right, I'll give it a shot. It was like $7 or something like that. And I was pissed that I spent $7 on it. I was pissed. I was like, damn it. I ended up selling it back. I think I got like $3 of my $7 back, but I'm like, fuck it. I have no desire to watch this movie ever again. But I mean, all off tangent here, but yeah. So I don't know. In conclusion, here we're good. Like we're an hour and 50 minutes. We've been rattling on about the Apes movies, but this is a good episode, I think, for people into this type of stuff. But I love the Planet of the Apes movies. I'm assuming you do as well.
I do, absolutely. It may be my second favorite franchise.
I think me too.
Next to the original trilogy.
Yeah, because Star Wars. I think as far as like those original franchises are concerned, it's right up there for me with like the Indiana Jones movies and like friggin' Star Wars. And I mean, I've always had like those stupid apes have always been in the back of my head somehow. Like I just can't get rid of them. And every now and then I feel like I just want to like be a part of that world. You know what I mean? That's all. I don't know. And as I get older now, I've realized there are certain things that I keep going back to. That like, okay, these are obviously the things that I really like. And the Planet of the Apes series is one of those things that I keep going back to. Like I watch those movies over and over again. So obviously I'm a big fan of them. You know, I mean, when I was younger, I didn't know too much about it other than they were on TV all the time when we were kids.
Cool.
They were cool.
Yeah.
And they were always just cool. The apes were cool. Like,
right.
Yeah, you know, like you always, that was like for Halloween, like if you had the money or you like to be an ape, be a gorilla or something, that would be an awesome Halloween costume. I still say that now. I'm like, I should be like a gorilla or something for Halloween. But Jesus Christ, that's probably an expensive ass costume. But so yeah, so we're at an hour and 50 minutes here, and I don't think there's much more or less for us to say about the whole Planet of the Apes series other than watch it.
Yeah, if you haven't seen them,
if you're into sci-fi and you're into that kind of stuff, like you'll appreciate it. If you're not a big fan of like older, like old 70s style movies, start with the new ones. I'm sure you'd like those. Go back, watch the old ones afterwards to give them a shot. Like I say, just watch it all. I mean, I enjoy them all. Like I almost say, like if you haven't seen the new movies yet, watch the original series, and then watch the new movies. I think you'll have a better appreciation for what they've done in the new movies. There's no major there are major connections, but they're two different series of movies, but you do appreciate them more if you've experienced the original Planet of the Apes movies. I think personally.
Yeah, you get all the little nods and you know.
Yeah, there's all kinds of like nods throughout the movie, like mentions, the little things that are just cool for sci-fi geeks and stuff like me. As I get older, I realize I'm more of a sci-fi geek than I ever thought I was. But but all right, well, thank you for listening to this episode of Video Village Podcast. I hope you enjoyed Mike and I waxing philosophical about apes. We, as I said to wrote the other day to Mike that we were getting ready to record this podcast, we went ape podding today.
Yes.
It's a new sport, ape podding.
Thank you for joining us, Ape Podding.
Yeah, thank you for joining us on the ape podding adventure. But, all right, so I'll talk to you next time. Actually, like I always say, you can check out Roadkill Entertainment at jayburn75.wix.com/Roadkill Entertainment.
We have a new short film that we
check out our stuff. Yeah, we made a new short film. There's a new short film up on our Roadkill Entertainment Facebook page. Like us, come check us out if you listen to this and think we're mildly interesting.
Yeah, and hey, if you check out the short film, our challenge was to do it in two scenes, one take. And we improvised.
Yes.
So we hope you like our challenge.
Yeah, that was our little filmmaking challenge that we did. So I hope you enjoy it, and I'll talk to you next time. Take care.